This is When Gen X Ruled the Multiplex, in which I look at films that shaped us members of the MTV generation when we were in our teens or preteens. Today's pick, the 1987 B-movie Cherry 2000, didn't get a theatrical release in the US, though it gained popularity in the late 80s as a VHS rental. Filmed in 1985, Cherry 2000 was shelved for a couple of years by its producer and distributor, Orion Pictures, because they felt pretty ambivalent about the finished product. Cherry 2000 was directed by Steve De Jarnatt, who also wrote and directed another 80s cult film that flew under the radar at the time but is regarded as influential in retrospect, 1988's Miracle Mile, which depicts a sweeping romance during a nuclear attack. The script was written by Michael Almereyda from a story idea by the film's executive producer, Lloyd Fonville. We open in Anaheim in the far-off future of 2017. A man named Sam Treadwell greets his beautiful and affectionate girlfriend Cherry 2000, who is a robot. Sam is played by David Andrews, who is the definition of a working actor. He's worked extensively in film and television since the early 80s, but this is a rare starring role. Cherry 2000 is played by the late Pamela Gidley, a former model who'd made her screen debut in the 1986 skateboarding drama Thrashin'. She's also known for playing doomed Teresa Banks in Twin Peaks' Fire Walk With Me. Sam and Cherry sit down for a romantic candlelit dinner of hamburgers and wine, then get busy on the kitchen floor as soap bubbles from the overflowing sink spill all over them. The water gets into Cherry's wiring, and she short-circuits, which seems like a significant design flaw. Sam takes a defunct Cherry to a technician, Slim, played by Michael C. Gwynn, who tells him she's an outdated model and her circuitry is beyond repair. He's able to salvage her chip, which contains her memory and her personality, and which looks like a teeny-tiny compact disc. Please note the presence of other robots in Slim's shop, which include Gort from The Day the Earth Stood Still and Forbidden Planet's Robbie the Robot. There are rumors that the video for Duran Duran's 1997 song Electric Barbarella, which was directed by filmmaker-photographer Ellen von Unworth, was inspired by this scene. In Electric Barbarella, the Durans visit a showroom not too unlike Slim's shop to buy themselves a super-hot robot for light housekeeping and sexual shenanigans. Slim tells Sam about a stockpile of unused Cherry 2000 bodies that are stored in a robot graveyard located in a lawless wasteland known as Zone 7. If Sam can find a replacement body for Cherry, he'll be able to get his dream girl back as good as new. Zone 7 is dangerous, but Slim tells Sam about a skilled tracker named E. Johnson who might be able to find him a new Cherry. We see glimpses of Sam's workplace in the world of 2017, in which recycling is a priority because resources are in short supply. In a deep funk due to the loss of Cherry, Sam accompanies his coworkers after work to the Glue Glue Club to meet a real woman. At the neon-lit Glue Glue Club, romantic hookups are treated as business deals, with lawyers on hand to draw up contracts before either party agrees to a liaison. One of the lawyers is played by Lawrence Fishburne, well before The Matrix made him a star, but well after his breakthrough role in Apocalypse Now. Sam goes home alone, where he uses a handheld player to listen to recordings of Cherry's voice from her chip while he lies in bed next to her lifeless form. Armed with a shotgun, Sam heads into the desert to the western town of Glory Hole in search of E. Johnson. In the lobby of a hotel, a heavily veiled clerk checks Sam into his room. The clerk is played by Jennifer Balgobin, whom we have seen playing Emilio Estevez's unfaithful punk girlfriend in Repo Man. Sam visits E. Johnson, who turns out to be a tough-as-nails woman with a bright red shock of hair. E. is played by the always wonderful Melanie Griffith, whom we have already seen in Body Double. One of the best trackers in the business, E. grew up in Zone 7 and was trained in the trade by the legendary tracker Six-Fingered Jake. E is willing to find Sam a replacement Cherry 2000 body, but insists he accompany her for backup. Sam refuses to enter the zone, and he heads to a local saloon in search of Six-Fingered Jake, whom he hopes will take the job. At the saloon, a dangerous lowlife named Stacy offers to help Sam out, but instead tries to rob him. Stacy is played by Brian James, best known as the lethal replicant Leon in the decade's very best film about robots that look like sexy humans, Blade Runner. Sam flees from Stacy and returns to E, agreeing to go with her into Zone 7. Sam and E drive into the desert at night in E's cherry red Mustang. They zoom through armed barricades manned by flamethrower-wielding hoodlums. Sam is obsessed with memories of Cherry, which disgust E to no end. Adamant that Cherry was only a lifeless appliance, E scoffs at Sam's insistence that he and Cherry were in love. While crossing a river with the help of an electric crane, Sam and E are ambushed by a gang led by a dangerous man named Lester, who rules Zone 7. 7. E fires rockets at the goons and blasts their way to safety. They hide out in an underground reservoir located beneath the Hoover Dam, which turns out to be the lair of Six-Fingered Jake, played by Western star Ben Johnson, Academy Award winner for The Last Picture Show. E, Sam, and Jake are ambushed by Lester's goons, who capture Sam and take him to Lester's lavish desert compound, Sky Ranch. At Sky Ranch, Sam is greeted by his loopy ex-girlfriend Ginger, played by Cameron Milzer, who introduces him to Lester. Lester's played by cult favorite Tim Thomerson, whom we have seen in Near Dark. Lester is dangerous, eccentric, and paranoid. He demonstrates all of those traits when he murders a newcomer to his group in the most gimmicky possible manner. Sam tries to escape in the middle of the night. He's stopped by Lester's henchman Chet, played by the late Robert Zadar, known for starring in cult films like Maniac Cop. He arrives to rescue Sam, and they speed off in the Mustang after blowing up the compound. Believing Cherry 2000's chip was lost in the chaos, Sam begins to fall in love with E, until he finds out she's been hiding the chip from him. Sam and E reunite with Six-Fingered Jake at the lair of Jake's longtime crony Snappy Tom and Snappy's girlfriend Randa. Randa is played by Jennifer Mayo, while Snappy Tom is played by Harry Carey Jr., who, like Ben Johnson, had a long career starring in westerns. Snappy Tom owns a small plane, which E sets about repairing so she can fly deeper into Zone 7 to find a Cherry 2000 model for Sam. Tipped off by the traitorous Randa, Lester and his goons raid Snappy's home looking for Sam and E. Randa kills Jake, but Sam and E manage to escape in the plane. Just to prove he's an unhinged psychopath, Lester kills Randa. Deep in Zone 7, Sam and E arrive at the buried remains of Las Vegas, where the tops of long-abandoned casinos stick out of piles of sand. Inside one of the casinos, they find a supply of robots, including a Cherry 2000 model. When Sam places the chip inside the body, she comes to life, and Sam has his beloved Cherry back. Lester and his goons descend on the casino and open fire. E, Sam, and Cherry make it to the plane, but it's too heavy to take to the air with all three on board. E jumps out so Sam and Cherry can escape. Realizing he'd rather be with a flesh-and-blood woman than with a robot, Sam lands and sends Cherry off to fetch him a Pepsi, then abandons her and rescues E. Amidst much gunfire, Sam and E take off in the plane, and Lester somehow manages to hang himself from the top of a long-abandoned casino. Ginger takes an abandoned Cherry under her wing while Sam and E make out while flying to safety. This is not a great film. It's probably not even a good film, though there's something about it that makes Cherry 2000 an entertaining relic of this particular moment in time. A great deal of Sam and E's journey into Zone 7 feels like it's just filling screen time. Not much happens, and whatever does happen doesn't move the story forward much. Melanie Griffith and David Andrews reportedly didn't get along during filming, and they don't have much chemistry together. Despite how cute and fun Griffith is in the role, it's hard to feel invested in the blooming romance between Sam and E. A few years back, there were very faint rumors about a potential Cherry 2000 remake starring Dakota Johnson, Melanie Griffith's daughter with Miami Vice star Don Johnson, as E. That doesn't seem to be happening, but as much as I find remakes and reboots of 1980s nostalgia properties generally unnecessary, in this case, I can see how a well-scripted Cherry 2000 remake could finally fulfill the untapped potential of the original. Because there are interesting things going on here, even if those ideas aren't fully fleshed out. It's an attractive film, most of it was shot in the Nevada desert, and the scenery is gorgeous. I like Basil Polidoris' score, I like John J. Moore's production design, and I like Julie Weiss's costume designs, like the colorful resort wear donned by members of Lester's gang. While it's a futuristic sci-fi action-packed B-movie with a new wave aesthetic, Cherry 2000 often nods to the Western genre, with a casting of Western stars Ben Johnson and Harry Carey Jr., and the Nevada desert setting, and in set pieces like the Wild West town of Glory Hole, where rough-and-tumble trackers can be hired at the local saloon. That's a blend of genres you don't find too often, and it's kinda cool. Even though it's never made explicit in the film, the 2017 depicted in Cherry 2000 is post-apocalyptic. When we first meet Ginger, she's wearing a radiation suit. The Las Vegas casinos have been destroyed and are buried under sand. There's a reason why Zone 7 has become an unruly no-man's land, and it seems likely that that reason is because at some point in the not-too-distant past, a nuclear bomb was dropped on Las Vegas. This nuclear attack doesn't factor into the story at all, it's just part of the background. That's very much in keeping with the Cold War-era mindset we all had in the 80s. Cherry 2000 is set in the future, so of course the world has been destroyed in a nuclear attack, because that's what we all saw as our future. Here in 2021, if you were to set a film 30 years from now, you'd be more likely to depict a world ravaged by climate change, or by, I don't know, an out-of-control pandemic. But in the 80s, the apocalypse was almost always nuclear in nature. Here's the other thing Cherry 2000 ventured to guess about our future. There will be robots, and we will be having sex with them. For as long as humans have been able to imagine robots that look like human beings, we've imagined designing them to look sexy, and we've imagined boinking them. Cherry 2000 continues in that grand tradition, though it doesn't take the idea very far. There's no real thought behind what it means for Sam to start off the film very much in love with Cherry, but to decide through the course of the story that this love is invalid and he'd be better off with a human like E. This is part of why Cherry 2000 is solidly a B movie, because the story exists solely on the surface while leaving any deeper ideas unexamined. On the surface, Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, which I looked at several months ago, is a film about sexy and dangerous robots that look human. In Blade Runner, the replicant Pris, played by Daryl Hannah, is a pleasure model. Like Cherry 2000, she's been designed for humans to have sex with her. At the end of the film, though, viewers are left wondering if Pris and her fellow replicants are any less human than those of us who weren't manufactured in a laboratory. The film is actually an open-ended exploration of what it means to be human. In Cherry 2000, questions about the nature of humanity are never raised. Cherry 2000 looks like a human, and she acts like a human, and Sam thinks he's in love with her, but she's nothing more than an appliance, full stop. By the end of the film, Sam realizes the truth of what E has been telling him all along, that he can't be or shouldn't be in love with Cherry because she's nothing more than a collection of electrical circuits. I will point out, though, that viewers don't necessarily buy into what the film is telling us. When Sam sends Cherry 2000 out of the plane to fetch him a Pepsi and then leaves her behind in the zone, it comes across as a major dick move. Because Cherry seems very sweet and defenseless, and because she seems confused by Sam's betrayal. Even though the film has tried its best to lead us towards the conclusion that there are humans and there are robots and never the twain shall meet, we're relieved at the end to see that Ginger is going to take care of Cherry. Cherry 2000 is guilty of taking a bunch of great sci-fi concepts and not doing all that much with them. But that's not the worst crime ever, and for a mid-80s B movie, Cherry 2000 is pretty entertaining. It could have been more than it is, but it's the kind of film that grabs you at the premise. A story about someone crossing a Mad Max-style post-apocalyptic wasteland in search of a replacement sex robot? Yeah, you got me. I'm buying a ticket, and I am bringing the popcorn. Next time, I'm going to try to see what happens when I summon Beetlejuice when I look at Tim Burton's 1988 horror comedy. Thanks for joining me here today. I will see you later.